So just refresh to make sure we are live. There we are. Awesome.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Hi, everyone. Hi, public speakers. It is amazing to see you today. Me and David had a quick chat before we went live, and we were already going. We almost forgot to go live. So now we're here. And why are we here today? We're speaking about this amazing book by author David McCrae. I'm so happy to have him here. I think we definitely met digitally, but I can't remember how long it was now. Can you remember?
Probably like start of lockdown, that whole like everyone's doing virtual speaking and everyone's interacting more in the Facebook groups. And then we're both in Toastmasters as well, but I don't think we actually met through Toastmasters. We only found that out later.
Yeah.
I genuinely can't remember, Christine. There's so many people I've met this year who I only have this virtual relationship with. But whenever it was, it's been good so far.
Yeah, definitely. It's been amazing. I've learned so much from you. I have attended some of your virtual speaking workshops, which were great. I'm in your group, by the way, guys. If you want to join David's group, it's called Rise and Inspire Speakers. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I get the whole title right. And yeah, it's a lot going on in his group. I love the atmosphere there as well. So if you want any more input for speaking, which we speakers always want, then join his group. So today we're going to speak about your book, David.
Nice.
For anybody who loves what we're talking about in this session, who will get curious about what David writes, why he launched his book, his story about becoming a speaker. I have left a link to the book on Amazon in the descriptions above this video, above this live video. So if you want to get it, then click on the link, and I would highly suggest. I love your book, David.
Thank you.
And I would love to start this before we go into more questions. I'd love to start this session with a little paragraph I wanted to read. But it's kind of 2 lines.
Nice.
So, and it's those ones that I really like. I remember from the book, and I hardly felt them. So you say, I realized I was capable of changing people's lives, and it was now time to start making the most of my abilities. With tears running down my face, I smiled. I now knew that my purpose was. At that moment, I experienced the power of speaking. I was getting a first-hand account of the difference it could make in people's lives. I couldn't believe how much just standing on stage and talking could change someone's life. As the visualization ended and I looked around at my fellow students, I saw I wasn't the only one crying. I absolutely love that. And with that, I want to start the interview and ask you, David, to tell us a little bit more about how your career in speaking started.
Sure. Well, you've set things up with suspense. Why am I crying? What's going on? So that's the, I say the end of a journey. Really, it's the beginning of a journey, but that's the kind of key point in about a 9-month journey for me. And to set the context for how I find myself in this position, the previous year, I'd just graduated from university. I was 22, and in my final year, I was making all of these plans. I was going to go out there and seize the day, make something of myself, change the world. You're going to hear that coming up a few times. And during that last year of my studies, my dad was given a terminal cancer diagnosis. And in the end, he died a month after my graduation. And I was there with him. At the end, I actually got to spend the last hour of my dad's life with him by his bedside, and I got to have a final conversation with him and say goodbye to him. And that was a hugely momentous experience for me. And I was standing there in that room minutes after the nurse had come in and confirmed that dad was gone. And I'm sitting there looking at my dad, and here's a man that I admired so much, I respected so much. He'd taught me so much about who I should be as a person, and trying to live my life the best way I could. And I'm looking with all of this respect and love for my dad, but I'm also seeing someone who didn't make the most of his life. He was someone with a lot of talent and ability, and he flirted from thing to thing. He was in the army and he got promoted very quickly, and then he left. He worked in insurance and he pulled into big sales figures, and then he left. And he used to do all of this writing. And actually, just a couple of weeks ago, I was sorting through some of his writings, and there's just stacks and stacks of it. He did so much kind of writing on philosophy, on spirituality. He looked at like quantum physics and science, and he was always like thinking and creating ideas. But at the end of his life, I don't think he really had much to show for it. And that really, don't know if I can swear, that scared the crap out of me. That was almost, in a way, I found that more sad than him actually dying. Not that he was dead, because hey, death comes to us all, we're all mortal, but the fact that here was a man who I looked up to so much, but I didn't think he'd made the most of his life. And I was really scared that the same thing was going to happen to me. But I didn't know what making the most of my life meant. What was I supposed to do? How was I supposed to live my life? And when you have an existential crisis, what do? You go to the internet. You go to Google, to YouTube, and you start looking for answers. And that's what I did. And I came across this man called Brendan Burchard, and I'm sure that name is going to spin some light bulbs. I mean, there's 8,000 people in your group. I'm sure a lot of them have heard of Brendan Burchard. And what he was talking about really resonated with me. It's all about trying to become the best person you can be, about trying to live a life of purpose, of vitality. And something that really connected to me with him is he actually lost his dad to cancer as well at a young age, a little bit older than what I was. I think he was about 29, I was 22. But that mutual experience, it made me feel like if he can be out here teaching people, inspiring people, and we had that same experience, maybe this is something that I can do for myself as well. And I thought there's only one way to find out. I have to go and spend time with this guy. And at the time, he was running a seminar called Experts Academy. There's probably a few graduates of Experts Academy who are watching this. He doesn't run it anymore. It's something different now. And it's a 4-day seminar on thought leadership. It's all about how to take your life experience and ideas and skills you have and use it to serve the world. This was across in California, $2,000 a ticket. Splashed out the last of my student savings on this ticket, flew across to California. I live in Scotland. For people who don't know, it was 27 hours on 3 different planes, but I made it. And I just felt like I was on this kind of pilgrimage, that over there in California, I was going to find these answers that I was looking for. And over those 4 days, I did. And the excerpt that Christine read is right at the end of that experience, where Brendan's taken us through this visualization, and he's asking us to imagine who we're going to be and what we're going to do when we leave Experts Academy. And I just saw so much for myself. I saw so much potential, and ultimately I really started to believe in myself at that point. And by then I was 23, and if I'm honest, I hadn't believed in myself up until then. I'd known that I had a certain level of intelligence and ability. I was a university graduate. Like I wasn't stupid, I wasn't untalented, but I never really thought that I could really make a difference in my life, never mind to other people's lives. But I did then. And that all came from someone standing on a stage and speaking, and that was Brendan. And he stood there for 4 days, and in 4 days he absolutely changed my life. And I thought, if Brendan can do that for me, maybe I can do that for someone else one day. And that is where this journey started for me. And that's where I realized that this thing that I'm supposed to do, the way that I'm supposed to make the most of my life, is through speaking.
Wow, that is so powerful, especially because I'm realizing something. A lot of people in my group, they keep saying I'm not extraordinary, I don't have anything special. about me. And I feel that your story actually shows it can be something about someone else. Like your
Mm,
event that happened that got you into it was someone else, right? It wasn't
yeah.
you. Maybe now it's you, but at the beginning it wasn't. So, people, if you are out there and if you feel that you don't have anything special about you, because I think we always give ourselves the least credibility. We always think the last about ourselves, isn't it? But then yet we ourselves have done so much in our lives. And just seeing your journey, David, is like you're doing new things, like all every year something new. And I know this Rise and Inspire is actually not your first book, is it?
It's book number 5.
Oh, five. Wow, that is crazy. I didn't know there were five. I thought there was only one other book. I want to quickly look at the comments because we have a lot of people watching. Hi, James Finnegan,
Hello to everyone.
another fellow Toastmaster. We have Cassandra here. Cassandra is doing amazing videos recently. I've seen
Good.
loads of
Get
her
yourself
videos.
on video, Cassandra.
Absolutely. There's Paulette. Paulette has gone through a near-death situation in her life, and that has propelled her to grow her community of productivity experts. So welcome Paulette to this live. Lisa, we have Fred watching. Amazing. Hello, everybody. Leave a comment below this video if you're here, if you have any questions about launching your book. Or if you're thinking about launching your book and you have any questions, then please leave them with us and I pick them up throughout the interview as well. So, David, let's get a little bit more into what gave you the idea for this particular book, Rise and Inspire. Do you want to just briefly talk about why you had the idea and who the book is mainly for, like who would benefit from this book?
Absolutely. There's a phrase, scratching your own itch. And that's pretty much what this book is. And funnily enough, it leads on really nicely from where we just left that story in terms of I decided that I was going to be a speaker, but there's no university you can go to become a speaker. I had just been to university to take on one degree. There's no university you go to learn your speaking degree. And there just wasn't really a roadmap out there. And I just threw myself in with a lot of passion and not much strategy, literally just picking up the phone, sending out emails, trying to find people who would put me in front of an audience somewhere. And if I'm honest, didn't have a whole lot of luck there. And then I started trying to run my own little events, little workshops, and I was in pub basements, I was in coffee shops, just anywhere where I could get a room and get some people in front of me and speak to them. And again, not too much success there in the beginning either. And this book is really for me at that stage because I needed a resource that could have helped me then. When I knew that I wanted to be a speaker, my heart was set on it. I even felt there was some kind of destiny around this. And that's a very loaded term, but I think people who have really committed to being a speaker will understand that there's just there's this pull, there's this calling, and you can't necessarily explain where it's coming from or what it is. You just know that it's there. And so I felt all these things, but I felt that the guidance wasn't there. There's a lot of guidance out there if you want to start a business, just a business, a brick and mortars business or an e-commerce business. There's so much information out there for you. And that's kind of the places I was going. And I picked up some general principles of, you've got to have a product and you've got to have a market and all of these kind of things, but it didn't really help me for becoming a speaker. And so essentially what this is, it's a handbook to help you become a speaker. If you're someone who says, I've got a story to tell and I've got a message to share and I want to get it out there, but I don't know how to do it, that book, it's your paint by numbers, get you started. Here's the things that you need to know. Here's the things that you don't need to worry about right now. I know we've got people, for example, who are filming video and everything, and maybe you're going, oh, but I don't have the right camera. I don't have the right lighting. What's the Sony XY7Z that I need? No. You're worrying about the wrong stuff. Turn on your webcam or get your phone out of your pocket and just start speaking into that. That's where you start. All of the fancy stuff, I can see that Christina's got a little bit of a kit in the background there. I've got a little bit of kit. in the background as well. There we go. There's my halo light that I film with. That stuff comes in time, but you don't need to worry about it right now, because when you first start filming video, you're going to suck. And there's a lady you were talking about earlier, and she's just started filming video. I'm sure she's killing it now, but she sucked when she first started. We all suck the first time we start anything, but you get in the game, you start building your skill, you start building an audience, and you can worry about all the trimmings later on. And that's what this book's really designed to help you do, is get you focused on what's important now to get you in the game. And that's another big phrase I'm a fan of. Just get in the game, get your voice out there, get your message heard, and then you can start building your journey and ultimately your career as a speaker.
I can't agree more, David. What I love about this book is that it's so kind of concise to the point. It's not like this big in-depth thing that you will never get through.
Yeah.
But it's still packed with so much information. I took so much away from it. And just like as you say, it's more like a handbook for when you start out as a speaker. And it really also tells us what not to worry about. Like, don't worry about being registered in a speaker's agency when you first start out speaking. This is way too early. And don't make it seem so complicated in the beginning while it isn't, like, especially now. And I want to ask my next question, David. Do you feel, actually, I know the answer, but for the audience, that now we have more opportunities than ever to become a speaker?
Absolutely. But there's no gigs going on. TED isn't running. Corporations aren't hiring. That doesn't matter, because what you've got are huge swathes of the population sitting at home, online, looking for things, looking for stimulation, looking for education, looking for entertainment. You now have more eyeballs on the internet than we ever did before the dreaded C word. And so there's more opportunity for you to find your audience. I'm working with people right now. Every single one of my clients I'm working with right now, I have never met in person. I've met them all online. Christine, I've met you online. I've never met you in person, but we have this relationship. We're having this conversation. We're talking about some deep stuff. I'm telling you about losing my dad. Like, you can have so much connection through this medium. So if you think that, oh, I've got to wait until after lockdown, after the pandemic to get started as a speaker, you're missing one of the biggest opportunities. Fingers crossed, something like this is never going to happen again. This weird constellation of events that have got so many more people online on a regular basis, let's hope it never happens again. So take the opportunity that's in this situation. Yes, it's a challenging situation, but there's also an opportunity in here for you to get a message out there and get heard right now.
Yeah, so true. What would you tell people? Where should they start? What do you feel is like the first step they should start with?
I've already mentioned it. It's doing video. Get yourself, like, even before this virtual world, getting yourself on video was so important. And especially looking ahead, getting yourself on video is going to be super important. We didn't really have virtual summits before COVID. We didn't really have remote speakers. Now we're going to have that so much more. And the reason is, and it always comes down to it, it's money. Why are you going to fly 10 speakers out to make up a place? Let's go for Germany. Why are you going to fly 10 people from around the world, Australia, the States, the UK to Germany, when you can get them to all join remotely? We save the planet. No fossil fuels going into the planet. We save a lot of time. We save a lot of money. If you've got a 90-minute keynote, all you need to do is turn on your laptop, speak for 90 minutes, and then that's it. You're not taking a long weekend visiting Germany, although Germany is a really nice place to visit. So take those 3 days another time. Let's take those 3 days and go on holiday to Germany. Don't go to Germany just because you've got some work to do.
I love that.
What was the original question? Yeah, the original question. So get yourself on video. As I said, phones nowadays, these shoot in HD. That's all you need. I still only film using my phone. And then get those videos on whatever your preferred social media platform. YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever your audience is, and that's something you do also have to work out, but guess what? The book helps you do that. Wherever your audience is, plaster that platform with videos and keep on filming videos even when nobody's watching them, because nobody's going to watch them for a long time. But eventually people are going to start watching, and eventually you're going to be a lot more confident and a lot more comfortable on camera. And everything you learn about speaking on camera then also applies to when you're speaking in front of people as well. You actually have more tools at your disposal in person than on camera. So if you can hold people's attention on camera, you can hold people's attention in a physical setting as well.
Yeah, I agree so much. And it reminds me of also one section in your book that says, when you first start out, you put your videos out there. Do not worry about those metrics. I really want to swear, but I don't. But like people thinking, oh, I need 5,000 people to like my video, right? In the book you describe that we shouldn't worry about that, and that is just something that's holding us back.
Yeah, I actually have a friend, just as a brief anecdote. He has TikTok and LinkedIn. He has, what has he got now? He's got about 500,000 followers on TikTok. He doesn't get a single client off TikTok. He takes his TikTok videos, reposts them onto LinkedIn, and that's where 100% of his business comes from. Speaking engagements, clients, they pick him up on LinkedIn, but he's made the video on TikTok, but when he reposts it to LinkedIn, that's where he gets his opportunities. So 500,000 followers on TikTok, you go, oh, wow, that's amazing. But a lot of that is just superficial metrics. It's not going deep and finding the people who really connect with you, who you can really serve, and you have some kind of unique proposition through which you can either speak to their company and do something in their company, or you can work with them as a person and help them to progress in whatever way they're wanting to progress.
Yeah, it's so true. And talking about deep connection, I'd love to just welcome some of the Academy members. We have got Sarah here, Fred, Bernadette, Neelam. Really nice to see you all. At the end of this session, we'll also give away one of these books, a copy of this book, to one lucky winner. So yeah, stay on and say hi. Leave your questions in the comments as well. We have people joining all the time, so that's amazing. I would love to ask you, David, how did you, when you had the idea for your book, how long did it take you from idea to then having your first copy of this book in your own hands? Like, describe the process a little bit for somebody who feels it's such a huge, daunting process and they don't know where to start. Maybe it is, but yeah, I'd love for you to tell us a bit more about that.
Okay, if you think this is daunting, ignore my first sentence, because my first sentence is 2 years. But I'll put some context to that. So I started writing this at the start of 2019. I had finished first page to last page, my first draft, by October of 2019.
Okay. That's how many pages? That is
160. It's about 40,000 words. It wasn't 40,000 words then. I think it was about 32. So about 32,000 words in what's that? 10 months, so about 3,000 words a month, which actually I would say that's quite on the low side for me personally, and actually for writing a book in general, that's quite on the low side. But I had other things that I was working on at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'd finished the first draft by October. Plan was to do the edits and proofreads for the next couple months, and then from spring of 2020 start planning the marketing push. Of course, what happens in spring 2020? COVID comes in. I started reassessing the book, and I realized that a lot of it was actually rendered redundant by COVID. I was making a big push on speaking physically and running your own events, and actually I realized that wasn't true. So I couldn't publish that. So basically the second half of the book you're reading, that is rewrites from spring onwards till maybe about the end of summer last year. And then I started doing the edits and proofreads to bring it out in February of this year. So although it took me 2 years, really, if the timeline had stayed as intended, you're looking at about 15 to 16 months from writing the first word to people buying it on Amazon, roughly speaking. And I would say that's roughly true book to book. As I said, I'm on 5 books now, and that's roughly the timeline that's actually occurred for each of them, is about 9 months of writing, 3 months of reworks, and then 3 months of a marketing push. That's roughly kind of how it's played out. So it's slightly daunting. You do have to commit to it. There's a reason why 90% of people want to write a book, but less than 0.1% of people actually have written a book. There's a difference between intention and actually doing it. So there is a jump that you've got to make there. But here's another thing that I'll mention since we're on it. The question that I always get about books is, David, how do you get your book up onto Amazon? Like, what do you have to do? What are the forms you have to fill in? What's the process? And I ask, have you written your book yet? No, well, I haven't written it, but I'm just looking ahead to the future. I'm saying, okay, go write your book. Come back to me when you've finished, and I'll tell you how to put it up on Amazon. Do you know how many people get back to me, Christine? One person has gotten back to me, said, by the way, just checking back in, David, I've finished the book now. How'd you get it onto Amazon? Right, brilliant. Wow. Okay, you've written the book. Now we can worry about Amazon. Now we can worry about the marketing. Now we can worry about everything else. Get your book written first. Nothing else matters. The cover, the audiobook, the editing, nothing else matters until you have your first word, your last word, and everything in between.
Yeah, it is so true. It's just so in our nature that we somehow want to do the things that seem easier to us. And instead of just doing, eating that frog, I don't know if you know the book.
Yeah.
Doing the thing that like we just want to like push away because it seems so hard, which in this case obviously is writing that damn book, right? So often I think what we have to learn in life is just really tackle those big things that we feel are so tough and hard to do. Like even launching my business, and there's challenges coming all the time. It never stops. So we have to kind of get familiar with that. We have to accept that that's just the process of what we want to achieve, isn't it? Yeah. Another question that came before the interview, I actually got one via email, was whether you think that writing a book is only for PhD students. Because I hear that a lot of time. People are saying, even for TED Talks, right? A lot of people say you have to be a PhD student, you have to have this huge study kind of done in the past to write a book. What's your take on that?
Christine, do you want to show the audience the academic references at the back of my book? Just hold them up to the screen.
I didn't actually. There's probably none, is it?
There's none. That's right. There are no academic references in my book. I do have a degree, but there's nothing about my degree that helped me to write that book. I'd actually think that I've learned a lot more about what I studied at university, psychology. I've learned a lot more about that from my own personal reading than actually what I did at university. Not to knock what I did at university, that gave me a good foundation, but the really interesting stuff, I've learned that afterwards. So no, you don't need to have a PhD, but I'm not going to flip the other way and just say that anyone can write a book, because I've seen some truly atrocious writing as well. And again, people asking me about their books, and maybe they send me a little excerpt and I just go, this is rough reading. And it's not that you have to be Hemingway or Dickens or insert your favorite author here. I think you've just got to write in a real conversational way. If you're not someone who has literary training, expertise, you don't have a grand vocabulary, like I'm someone who just, I find words very easy. I find language very easy. Writing, speaking, it comes naturally to me. Give me maths, give me engineering, whole different kettle of fish. Words are my strength. And that's one of the reasons why I have become a writer and speaker, because it plays to some of my natural strengths. But you don't need literary expertise. But what I think you do need is just to be able to tell a good story and to be able to speak in a way that people find relatable. And that's why I think all speakers should be authors and all authors should be speakers, because essentially there shouldn't really be a difference between the two. There's a different, you express yourself differently in a book compared to how you speak, but that's it. They shouldn't be too different. Certainly for nonfiction. Fiction, different story, but for nonfiction, anyone should be able to speak and write the same thing in nonfiction. So whether you want to tell a story, whether you want to teach people about productivity, I know one of the ladies you're talking about, she does productivity. You should be able to do that in both forms. So no, you don't need a PhD to write a book, but you do need someone to look over your writing. You do need someone to tell you how it sounds, because if you have bad writing, nothing will help your credibility more than a good book, and nothing will damage it more than a bad book.
Yeah, I so agree. We just got a question in from Derek as well. What was your greatest motivation to write? And then also, does your book address issues of claustrophobia? I know Derek is fighting his fear of speaking, so maybe you have some tips around that for him. Be great.
Sure. So first part of that question, what inspired me to be an author? I used this word destiny earlier. It's quite a loaded term, and normally I don't like to go into, I kind of find that territory a bit woo-woo, talking like metaphysical like that. But genuinely, I think I was born to be an author. And the reason why I say this is I was reading books before I could properly speak. I would sit there with The Hungry Caterpillar or Thomas the Tank Engine. And believe it or not, for a speaker, I actually developed late as a speaker. I used to be taken to like sort of learning disability classes because they thought that I maybe had some kind of impairment in my language, but I was actually just a late developer. And I've been making up for it ever since
No.
when I speak.
Yeah,
So I was actually,
definitely.
So I was reading before I could properly talk. My mom used to read stories to me before I went to bed every night. And even when I was playing, I was a little bit of a loner as a child. And I think it was just this kind of, I developed differently to other children when I was young. So I would create these fantasy worlds and I'd lose myself in them. I'd be in space, or I'd be in a Western, or I would be in a medieval kind of story. And I'd just create these vivid stories. And so stories have always been a massive part of my life from a very young age. And that's really just such a deep source of intrinsic motivation that when we're at school and the teachers asked us, what do you want to be when you grow up? All my peers were saying, I want to be a train driver, a fireman, an astronaut, because that's what you say when you're 5 or 6. You don't know about, I can be a project manager, or I can be a property solicitor. You don't know about real jobs. You just know about the fantasy jobs. I was the weird kid who at 5 or 6 was saying, I want to grow up and be an author. So it's just always been there for me. That's why I've written 5 books, because it's such a key part of who I am as a person, I feel. For the second part, addressing, what was the phobia again?
The fear of speaking. The
Fear of
of public
speaking.
speaking. Yes.
So there are, as Christine will be able to tell you, there is a chapter on mindset which looks a little bit at some of the confidence and belief of seeing yourself as a speaker. But I would say that's a little bit different from an anxiety and a fear of speaking. That's a lot more of a physiological reaction, whereas what I'm talking about is a little bit more kind of slightly deep-rooted psychology and going to a bit more of a system of belief, as seeing yourself as a speaker and believing that you're worthy of being a speaker, rather than I'm literally terrified in this moment. Different things I could suggest. There's exposure therapy in terms of phobias. That's, again, I'll come back to my degree. It was useful for something. In terms of phobias, exposure therapy is sort of the gold standard for getting over any phobia. And basically what that is having a gentle gradient of increasingly exposing yourself to the stimulus that scares you. So let's use spiders as an example. So if you're scared of spiders, what I don't do is throw you into a cage full of spiders. That's not going to help you overcome your fear. What I might do is say, okay, I want you to just start thinking of a spider and just hold it in your mind's eye. And we'll work through that until you can think of a spider and you're no longer scared. Then we'll get you in a room and I'll put a toy spider at the far end of the room. Okay, can you be in a room with a toy spider? And we'll get you to the point where that no longer scares you. Then the toy spider goes in your hand. Then we put a real spider, far end of the room, locked in a glass box. Can you get to the stage where that's comfortable? Then can you hold the glass box in your hand? Then can you have the spider on your hand? And eventually you get to the point where you can have the spider in your hand. Sorry for all of you who are actually have a phobia of spiders. You get to the point where you have the phobia in your hand and you're no longer scared of it. Applying this to speaking, if you want to overcome your fear of speaking, it might seem like putting yourself out there over and over again is going to do it, but that's probably not the most effective way. Don't go and stand on TEDx to try and get over your fear of speaking. Start that same process, just thinking about being on stage and working through that until that no longer seems scary for you. And then being in a room where someone's on stage. And then this is a little bit trickier because this is where the exposure doesn't quite work out so well. Are there scenarios where you can get on stage but not be the person speaking? So maybe you're in like a panel or a raffle or a charity event or something. Maybe you're running a Zoom meeting, but you're not like the chair of the meeting. This middle ground's got to be a little bit harder, especially at the moment. But can you get yourself on stage but not kind of have the spotlight on you? And then eventually you are going to get to the point of you will need to be standing there speaking. But again, do it in front of two people. Get two of your friends and just say, look, can you please just sit in front of me whilst I do a presentation? Toastmasters is brilliant for this. Christine will tell you, I will tell you, virtual meetings at the moment, physical meetings at some point in the future. Find a smaller club, and you can do that right now because it's virtual. You can join any club in the world and just find one that's quite small. Speak in front of a couple people, get to the point where that is comfortable for you. And then you're just working your way up the gradient again. So that middle bit will be a little bit tricky. You can't do the spider at the far end of the room in quite the same way. But that's really the gold standard for phobias. And that works for every documented phobia. You can get people to at least lower their anxiety, if not actually. Phobias are one of the few things that you can cure. And that's usually a word that we don't use in psychology. We like to say get better. We don't like to say cure. But you can literally remove people's phobias. It's one of the few things that you can actually cure using psychological interventions.
Wow, that was a deep dive lesson. Amazing, David. What did you study? Can I ask? What was your study field?
Psychology, yes. I've got a master's in psychology. No
Wow.
biggie.
I've always been interested in it, but like I never thought it would be like a career path, but I've always been very interested in reading about it. I listen to podcasts about it, and I just love what we can do with our brains. It's just fantastic. Yeah. So I hope, Derek, that helps you, that answers your question. Derek, in the academy, because Derek is also a member of our academy, there is a course about overcoming stage fright from I think we launched it last year, end of last year. And yeah, have a look at that if you haven't already. I think you might have already looked at it, but that would be the first course for you to definitely look at. I'm just looking through the comments. We've got some amazing comments here.
This
Cassandra,
is great. I can't see any of them, so this is like a really nice surprise to see what people are saying.
yeah, like people are loving it. Cassandra also loves words. She asks, how did you settle on a topic for your book? There are so many options.
Well, I've actually been through so many options, Cassandra. My first two books were fiction. My third book was self-help disguised as an autobiography, which was called The Last 60 Minutes. And it's the last 60 minutes that I spent with my dad. And it's a story, and it's like the lessons that I learned from that. But it's kind of a lot of my life wrapped up into lessons. And then my fourth book was actually, if you want to look at the references in that book, there's over 200 academic references. So that was quite an academic psychology focused book. So I did write on my degree for that one essentially. And then this one's public speaking. So I've got my last three books have each been #1 on Amazon in their category. And it's been three different categories. It's been death and grief, it's been psychology and training, and it's been public speaking and speech writing. So actually, I've just gone where the feelings take me. And I think that's an important thing to say to writers, and something I wish I'd been told a little bit earlier, that I had my heart set on fiction. And I do want to return to fiction at some point. That's what I grew up on. I grew up on stories. I didn't grow up on self-help books and autobiographies. But play with stuff. If there's something that you feel the urge to write about, like at the time, I wasn't even coaching public speaking. I wasn't teaching anyone public speaking, but I just felt like I needed to write a public speaking book. And weirdly, that's now created a pivot where all I'm doing now is coaching on public speaking. All I'm teaching is public speaking. All that's like, it was nice to bring out that phobia stuff. I haven't been talking about things like that for a while. So just go where the feeling takes you. And if you've got something in your heart that you really want to write about, it'll be a good book, because you'll feel that passion, you'll feel that enthusiasm coming off the pages. The worst thing you can do is write a book because you feel you have to write it. And there's a few abandoned projects that I have because I started writing and I just realized I'm writing this because I think I should be writing this, not I feel I should be writing this. And that's quite a difficult distinction for the male mind to make. We like to think rather than feel, whereas the ladies, you're much better at feeling rather than thinking. So go with what you feel you want to write, and that will be a good book, whatever it might be.
Yeah, amazing. It's interesting because I think in that way I'm rather male oriented, kind of, because I went through a similar journey with my community here. I started it off because I was fearful of speaking. Like in my first Toastmaster meeting, and people will know that, I was so glued to that chair, I could not stand up and just say my name. I couldn't. I was shaking and everything. And that whole process of how I got over my fear, that's what I wanted to share with people. And that's how my community became big. And then all of a sudden, I started thinking, oh, I need to teach them how to make money with speaking. And that wasn't in my heart, you know? So I started to feel like I don't want to do this anymore. And I had to reset and say, what does my heart tell me? Like, why did I start this in the first place? And then I went back, and now I'm doing this again more and more. And I feel so much more aligned with the community again. It's amazing. So yeah, guys, definitely do what you feel is right, not always what you think is right.
And sometimes you need to
Yeah.
go away and come back to rediscover that. The expression, the grass is greener. Sometimes you do just need to go and kind of look over the fence and go, actually, no, I am right where I am, and this is what I want to do, but I just needed to confirm that for myself.
Absolutely. We've got some new people joining all the time. We've
Hello.
got Kitty is here. Nice to see you, Kitty. She's been a fan of this community since the get-go. Pearl, she's only recently joined. Amazing to see you on this live. Fantastic. Let me see if there's any more questions that we all have on here. Great responses. Thank you. Yeah, the inspiration. Amazing. Kitty says, yes, I like that thought. Go with what you want to write. Definitely. Amazing. Yeah, let's see. Adam Woods just joined. How do you keep yourself accountable and not distracted?
Sometimes you don't. And recognizing that rather than beating yourself up for it is quite a big aspect.
Yeah.
But in other terms, I used to get asked this a lot before I started teaching public speaking, of how do you stay motivated? And I feel like I'm quite a bad person to ask that, because I'm a very motivated and self-driven person. It's not something that I've particularly had a problem with. But when I do
Mm.
have a problem with it is, and I'm allowed to swear now, so I'm going to take advantage of this. If there's something I don't give a shit about, it's amazing how demotivated I am to do that thing. And so sometimes you've got to
Yeah.
tap into that. Sometimes you've got to say, right, am I just procrastinating here? Am I just getting distracted and I really just need to get this done? Or is my lack of motivation actually telling me something that this isn't a worthwhile thing? I shouldn't be doing it. I shouldn't be pursuing it. And it's amazing how many people say they're not motivated in their jobs because, surprise, surprise, they're not in a career that's suitable for them. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And they're thinking that reading some productivity book, we talked about Eat the Frog earlier, somehow we'll read Eat the Frog and then I'll magically be motivated and productive. No, because you're doing something that inherently you don't care about, you don't feel any attachment to.
Mm-hmm.
And the times where I never have to worry about motivation are when I'm doing something that I really care about and I'm really passionate about, when I'm in the depths. Sometimes it takes a little nudge to start you writing, but once I'm even a couple hundred words in, like I can just be there for the rest of the day, or certainly for hours at a time, and thrash out thousands of words, but just needs that little nudge to begin with. Or I'm speaking to an audience and I'm really vibing with them and I can see that they're getting a lot out of it, and I'm actually getting a lot back from it as well. That really kind of symbiotic sort of connection that you have in kind of the magic moments of speaking. Motivation is never an issue then. So that's maybe not a very helpful answer, but I genuinely think that's the most real answer. Of motivation shouldn't be an issue if we're working on something we really deeply care about. Usually it just comes in when maybe you're not doing what you're really supposed to be doing. And yes, sometimes we need to give ourselves a little bit of nudge and we need to have a little bit of discipline. Working out is a great example. Normally, see, when you've gone for a run or you've been to the gym, or I've gone hiking in the mountains, as Christine knows, after you've done that, you feel amazing, but you don't always want to start it. And you just need that little nudge to start. And then when you do, you're always thankful at the end. So there's a little difference between giving yourself a nudge and working on something that you inherently don't care about enough to really work on.
I so agree. I so agree. Like I can feel that in my own, like just when you talk about it, that whenever I go back to the reasons why I'm speaking, the reasons why I have the academy, the community, then I'm like, oh yeah, so who cares about taxes? I will get over this, right? Or who cares about, I don't know, technical issues or whatever. The big goal, the big vision is there. And as long as you go back to this and ask yourself, why did I start this in the first place? I think then even taxes or technical stuff is easy to overcome. So I love this answer. It's very good. So David, after Rise and Inspire, what's next?
Yeah, so next one is definite. It's not always definite after I've finished writing a book. This one wasn't definite. The next one definitely is virtual speaking specifically, really just breaking down this virtual environment. And we might not be forced into it for too much longer, but we'll definitely be using it for a lot longer after this. And I think remote working, virtual speaking, all of that stuff's here to stay now. Like the toothpaste's out of the tube, it's never going back in now that we've seen how effective it can be and how it works. And there's ultimately going to be some kind of hybrid model that emerges into the future. So really just getting prepared for that and learning about, okay, there's a difference between speaking on Zoom like we are just now and doing a Facebook Live. I know we're technically live on Facebook, but I wouldn't call this a Facebook Live. This is Zoom. Facebook Live is a slightly different thing. There's a nuance between how you speak on a Zoom session where you've got 12 people in a workshop and how you broadcast on a Facebook Live to dozens or hundreds, or I mean, it can go up to thousands and tens of thousands if you've got the audience for that. So there's a difference in how you speak in those two scenarios. And so what the book's going to be about, it's still very much bare bones just now, is what are the different platforms that you can use? How do you communicate virtually? Look at the camera, use your hands a lot more than you think you need to, all of that kind of stuff. There's all of these little techniques that start coming through. So that's the rough guide of the book. I don't even have a title for it yet. I've got the virtual revolution in my head right now, but I think that might be a bit of a wanky title. I don't know.
I like it.
We'll see how that goes. Because I think we have been through a virtual revolution. I just don't know if I want to use that as a book title. And then the next one after that, and this has been my next book for the last couple books, and if I'm honest, I think I've been scared of writing it, and I've been thinking a lot about it in the last couple of weeks. I really want to write a book on masculinity and all of this stuff that's been going on with Sarah Everard here in the UK, and some of the reaction to it, and some of the the lack of male voices talking about it and discussing it. I feel there's this massive conversation about masculinity that we need to have, and we're just not having it at the moment. And I feel it needs to come from a man. So I feel like I'm placed to write the book, but I'm scared about some of the things that I would have to write in it. I'd have to talk about some of my own flaws as a man. I'd have to talk about some of my weaknesses in terms of masculinity, some of my fears and some experiences I've had for myself and for others, bad examples of masculinity. And so I'm actually kind of scared of writing that book, which means that I should probably write it. I've actually put another book in front of it. And at some point I need to stop putting books in front of it and write it. But that's the other one that's kind of sitting there stewing. So I've got 2 books lined up. I set myself a target a couple of years ago that I wanted to have, I wanted to write 2 more books before I was 30. I'm 28 now. Rise and Inspire is one of them. This virtual speaking one would be quite quick to write. And I don't know why I need to write another book by 30. I think that's just setting targets for the sake of setting targets. I don't know, maybe I can write a book on masculinity in my 30s as opposed to my 20s. I don't know. But yeah, that's one that we were talking earlier about, how sometimes there's things that you feel that you're meant to do. And in terms of motivation, that book on masculinity is something that I feel that I should be writing. And it's something that I'm pulled towards again and again. There seems to be some kind of purpose behind why I'm supposed to write this book. So yeah, they're my 2 ones that are swimming around the head at the moment. And then way into the future, I do want to return to fiction at some point, but I'm having fun with non-fiction. And to be honest, non-fiction is a little bit easier to write. It's a little bit easier to market as well. So I'm sticking with non-fiction for the moment, and fiction will be there in the future at some point.
Wow. I love how you've got it all planned out. And I can feel we need this voice of yours for your book that you want to write about masculinity.
Yeah.
I can feel that. I cannot believe how fast the time goes. I could talk to you forever in this. Just so interesting. Before I give you the final question, I want to announce who I'm going to give the free copy to today. And it's someone in the Academy who has been with us since the get-go. He is such a great supporter of everything we do. He helps other people in the community so much. And he's just always there. Even when I need a question, sometimes even the leader has questions. He's just always there and supports what we do in the Academy. So I'd love to give that book, with your permission, David,
Absolutely.
to Fred Young. Fred Young.
Fred Young.
Applause. Yeah, so congratulations. Normally I do a draw, but this time I just felt so much that I wanted to give that book to him. So he talks about, and his mission in life is to motivate the youth. He wants to speak more in colleges when COVID calms down. And I think his mission is just so wonderful to help the youth in their one of their most difficult situations, I guess, in life. So that's amazing.
Yeah, sounds great.
I promise the last question, David. Let me just see. I need to pick from one.
I love answering questions.
That's good.
Makes me feel like I've got something worthwhile to say.
You have had. First of all, how can people find you? How can people find you, get in contact with you? How can they join the community? Just let us know.
Yeah, slightly difficult. phasing out a lot of social media. I used to be everywhere, and I'm kind of pulling back. So I do have a Facebook page, but
Hmm.
I'm not really using it. So what would be a lot better is to join my Facebook group instead, which is Rise and Inspire Speakers. The acronym is RAISE, RAIS. So we
Hmm.
can link that in. And that's where that's the hub of my activity. I've got a YouTube channel, which is Dave McCrae, Virtual Speaking Coach. LinkedIn, if you type that in, you can find me as well. But the Facebook group is where you'll see me most and be able to interact with me most. I kind of just have LinkedIn sort of for the sake of having it now. YouTube, I'm doing that regularly. Obviously, as a speaker, you want to be putting videos out there, and that's it. I've basically phased myself off of all other social media for the moment. I was considering Clubhouse, but I think it's just got to be a bit of a distraction at the moment. So yeah, Facebook group would be the best place. And honestly, like you can, I don't know if you can see my name or I'm like tagged in this or something. Like just click on my name and send me a message if there's a question you want to ask me, or there's something that you want to share, something you want to run by me. Yeah, just send me a follow-up message off the back of this, and I'm happy to respond.
For sure. Great. Thank you. I've linked to your group as well in the comments below this video. And again, if you want to get a copy of David's book, it's well worth a read. I've linked that to the Amazon listing above this video as well. Last question, David. Drum roll. It's not about the book. This question is about why Scotland?
Well, I was born here, so I guess possession is 9/10 of the law. I was born here. I guess that's just an accident of genetics partially, but I think Scotland's a really great country, and of course everyone thinks that their own country is great. But what I really notice, I'm fairly well traveled. We're actually talking earlier about travel before we started. My wife is better traveled than me. I'm fairly well traveled, and everywhere that I've been in the world, people really like Scotland. People say, "Oh, you're from Scotland. That's so nice." Like, I love Scottish people, or I visited Edinburgh, or I went to the Highlands. US in particular, Americans always want to tell you about their Scottish great granny that they had that came over from the clearances or after the war, whatever it might be. And I think that says a lot that Scottish people are really sort of respected and adored across the world. And I think we have a really great culture. There's a few fundamental problems that I think Scotland really has, one of which is a lack of aspiration. We've got this entrenched historical underdog mentality, and we have a lot of problems of belief and confidence in ourselves. And I don't like that aspect of our culture. I think we should be a lot more aspirational, but generally speaking, we're friendly, we're kind, we're really intelligent. If you look at the list of inventions by Scottish people, television, phone, radio, like the list just goes on and on. Like for such a small country, I think we really punch above our weight. And so I'm genuinely really pleased to call Scotland my home country, and it's not somewhere that I'm planning on living in forever. Just because of that aspiration and opportunity, I don't think there's enough of it here. But Scotland will always be a part of my heart. I support Scotland in every sport. I've got my clan tartan. I've got a clan castle that's the McCrae clan castle. Like there's so much here that I'm really patriotic about. Ultimately, that's the word I'd have to use, and I know that can be a bit of a dirty word. It's sometimes mixed up with nationalism and nationalistic tendencies. But yeah, I think Scotland's a really great, and I'm sure I could poll people who are watching live right now and they could say, yeah, I really like Scotland. I like Scottish people. And I think that just says a lot about our country, and we've got a lot to be proud of. And I think we should be more proud of that than what we are. We beat ourselves down, and we put ourselves down way too much.
Cassandra just says, I love Scottish music.
There we go. See, music, culture, people, landscape. You can always find something that people seem to like about Scotland.
Absolutely. I love traveling there because I also like hiking. I like going on walks, just like you as well.
Yeah.
I don't do quite as much as you do. Like you are like out there almost every week or probably every week. But I really enjoy it and I want to do more of it. So that's my goal for this year. Should spring arrive finally.
Yeah.
Awesome, David. I want to thank you so much for your time. Let's show people the book one more time, Rise and Inspire. Get a copy if you haven't already. And I want to just thank you for coming here, for being vulnerable, for sharing. I know you haven't been sent any of the questions, so it was all just from the heart. So that's what I love about speaking. And I just want to thank you. Any final thoughts from your side?
I just want to thank you for hosting this, and also thank you for everyone who's joined on live as well. I know there's certainly a temptation to just go, oh, I'll watch that on replay. Oh, I'll catch this later. I do that all of the time. So thank you for coming on live and asking the questions. And I think that's really helped Christine to have a richer interview. And I've enjoyed it more as a result, to be able to feel like I'm interacting with you rather than just me and Christine sitting at two opposite ends of a webcam. So thank you for everyone who's joined us live. And if you're watching on replay, I'm not missing you out either. Thank you for watching the replay as well. And you've watched it to the end. So thank you for taking the time to, well, we're on now an hour or whatever it's been. So thank you for taking that time out your day to listen. And I hope you've taken something from this.
Amazing. Great. So that's it for today. We have some exciting stuff coming up in the academy. Just keep your eyes peeled on the group. And I'm also looking forward to see what's going on in David's group. I'm an active member in there too. So have a good evening, night, morning, wherever you are. And I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye. Bye.